Welcome to the Boss Mode podcast, where we discuss the future of work.
I am David Lee, founded a couple of startups in the past. My most recent one, Shaker, was acquired by a business partner. And now I am the co-founder of Vanka AI. I'm here today with my good friend, Dee Deng.
I'm a marketer, always been a marketer at heart. I get to talk to a lot of agency owners who have to stay on the forefront to stay competitive, not get left behind. So the market forces tend to push people to always try to adopt and stay ahead. Went to an agency conference in Nashville in January, and then went to MetaFest. Then more recently, went to 2 retail conferences. So it's like retailers as well as D2C brands here in Australia. And the whole time I was just having conversations with people around, where are you with this new tech that's coming with AI, right? To what extent are you leaning in, leaning away? How are you adopting it? What are your thoughts on it? There are certain people that think, oh, AI is just going to make people lazy. People are going to stop thinking and AI is just going to make people dumber. So I'm actively not using AI because I don't want to get dumber. So there's that pocket of crowd. And then there's the other pocket of crowd. I call them the AI curious. They're watching YouTube videos and reading LinkedIn posts and going to articles to try to figure out what types of, like how to make their prompting better or how to wrap their head around the differences between choosing Gemini versus Claude versus GPT-5. And they're the ones that are lamenting about, I spend more money on AI subscription tools just to test them out than I spend on buying stuff for myself now. And then there's the other bunch, and I guess we can put them into the early adopter category, who are non-technical, who then are both feet jumping in. They just want to jump into the pond and go, I don't know how to code. I heard about this cursor, windsurf, lovable, base 44. I'm just going to go in there and just move fast and break shit. And it's so cool talking to those people because they're just trying out stuff almost with this fear of getting left behind. Not even fear of missing out, just fear of getting left behind. So that's where the conversations I've been having are at. Very curious to hear where clearly been in tech for really long and also different circles that we run in. What kind of conversations have you been having or things that you've been hearing?
So I've been talking to executives in big tech. I've been talking to people in law and accounting, startup founders, of course, engineers, product managers. I've been talking to plumbers and electricians. What I found is that fairly universally, folks are concerned about the change and everybody understands that big change is afoot. But I find that at some point in their thought exercise, a fairly early point in the thought exercise, a lot of folks are deciding to bury their head in the sand. I'm hearing, don't worry, things will be fine. Humanity has gone through the agricultural revolution. We've gone through the industrial revolution. And we've always figured out what that new kind of work would be. When I press my friends this, folks that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, I don't get anything specific back. And this was a few months ago that I realized, hey, it's not acceptable for us to not find that answer. What is next? What are these new jobs that we'll be magically creating?
Allegedly.
I saw a post on Instagram today, some Google executive is saying that it's simply wrong that AI isn't coming for your jobs. It's absolutely coming for your jobs. He pointed out that it's wrong that AI will create net new jobs. If we think about the status quo, the way that society is structured today, the way that we educate our young people, the kind of work that we funnel people towards and prepare people for, even in the home, I think that if we don't change that, then yes, we will not have net new jobs. I believe that with AI, we set aside jobs and all that stuff and think about how should people be using AI and how do I see people using AI in the most impactful way right now? I see people being their own CEO. I see people putting AI to work. I see people having AI provide meaningful feedback on the seed of an idea and expanding on that and pressure testing it, red teaming it, looking for adjacent opportunities, looking for actionable next steps. I believe that what's next for the human race is everybody becoming their own CEO. Everybody in the coming year, I believe, is going to have this remarkable opportunity to train themselves in the act of being a CEO, because you don't need to have a massive budget to be able to go out and hire people to go out there and do research for you, to do work for you, to handle specific tasks for you. You can have AI do that and go through those cycles and get that same experience that big company CEOs were the only ones who had the opportunity to experience.
You said something really interesting. I talk to people that I respect and look up to, and I ask them these questions, and I don't get anything specific back. So what do you get back?
Techno-optimism, for the most part. Techno-optimism. And then on the other end, I hear that electricians and plumbers are going to be okay. And I do think that electricians and plumbers are going to be exceptionally resilient. We'll see increased demand in the next couple of years because of the sheer number of data centers that need to go up. As just one simple thing to point to, there's a way that we do that kind of infrastructure, and it requires human electricians and human plumbers. But I'll point to Tesla and how when Elon Musk was automating the Tesla factory, one of the things that he realized was exceptionally difficult was the soft wiring, the manual dexterity, the fine-tuned manual dexterity that's needed to handle all the soft wiring. And so there's the Optimus robot, and maybe it'll be able to do it, maybe it won't be able to do it. I expect it will, but even if it can't, we can change the way we do wiring.
Sure.
And one of the ideas that I heard was create these pipes with the wiring baked in, and then robots can then install the wiring pipes. And that makes it now something that can be automated. And so this is why I believe that even with this big boom in the need for the trades in the next 1 to 3 years, I believe in years like 4 or 5 and beyond, we're going to see changes to the way that we do wiring, the way that we do plumbing, to become more compatible with the idea of automation. I might be off by a few years, but at some point that's going to change. And then automating those trades as well becomes possible. And is that good? Is that bad? For the guy who could lose his plumbing job to a robot at some point, yeah, it's bad. Absolutely. It's traumatic. It's incredibly disruptive to the individual and the family and society at large as well, to have large swaths of humanity no longer working. But on the consumer side, costs drop 10x, 100x. And that's what we're seeing across the board. I think we're seeing massive forces, downward forces on prices. So people have been complaining about inflation. I think we're going to see just an exceptionally rapid decline in the price of goods and services over the course of the next 5 years. And that will soften the blow of the employment crisis that I believe we are already at the beginning of.
Yeah. What do you think speaking about timelines, how do you think the next 5 to between now and 2030, the next 5 years, and then 2030 to 25 to 35, like, what do you think the next timeline looks like? What does the future 5 years, 10 years out look like?
3 to 5 years is the timeline that I'd like to focus on, because up to 10 years and beyond, I think that it's easy. It's easy to forecast, I believe, and it's easier on humanity. The really rough ride is going to be the next 5 years, because very few people are thinking about how to adapt as a society and as individuals to this new reality of large language models being better than most humans at their jobs. Now, 3 to 5 years, why is it so disruptive? In the next 3 to 5 years, I think we'll have 50% unemployment. And that happens, and it's painful to imagine, but it's easy to imagine because most people don't want to be working. You go to a restaurant, there are fantastic waiters, waitresses. You go to a gas station, there are gas station attendants with a smile, but you've also got a lot of folks that don't want to be working at those jobs, that aren't happy about being there.
In almost any industry, in almost like any and every industry too,
Absolutely.
right? Like, I mean,
lawyers, you've got entrepreneurs that don't want to be on that journey. You've got VPs at big tech companies that don't want to be on that journey. So yeah, across the spectrum, no matter what the job is, there are a lot of humans that don't want to be doing that work. And when they don't want to be doing the work, it becomes exceptionally easy for AI to outperform you. And I think that's been the low-hanging fruit for AI to come in and disrupt and eat up a lot of those jobs. But we're now at the point where AI is also simply outperforming anybody with less than 5 years of work experience. So if you've got less than 5 years of work experience, you're just entering the job market. Chances are AI is going to be closing off job opportunities for you. You're going to see AI taking your job. And so that's what I think the next 3 to 5 years is going to be. We're going to see, on the one hand, the softening of the blow, deflationary forces, where just costs declining very rapidly. But on the other end, we're going to see massive pain going up because people are going to be losing their jobs. And I take no pleasure in that. But I also don't want to ignore these harsh realities that we face.
It's really interesting times living here in Australia. Whenever AI makes the news here, mainstream news, it gets raised in 2 buckets. One, it's big tech or incumbent company announcements around workforce reduction projected over the next 3 to 5 years. Telstra, for example, which is a telco company here, one of the biggest and I think the longest standing one, they earlier this year projected out that their workforce is going to shrink by, I forget what it is, 30% across the next 3 to 5 years, something like that.
30%.
Yeah.
Poof, gone.
Yeah.
If that's what they're announcing. They might be saying 30% and internally thinking 60%.
Sure.
Right.
Exactly. So you've got those types of stories coming out on the news. And then on the other side, it'd be these kind of puff pieces around, ooh, look at how AI, Vogue just put AI into their most recent magazine where it tries to start up some debate around AI and creativity. And whether it's taking jobs away, the segment is maybe given like a minute and a half. And then we're moving on to regular old news. And thinking back to what we were talking about just a bit earlier, where you're saying people in general just aren't considering how society could change. I wonder how much of it is just because we've been so conditioned here in Australia. I'm originally from Singapore, same thing in Singapore, where we're so conditioned to go, we're going to be fine because the government's going to do something about it. They're the ones, they're going to regulate, they're going to come up with different types of schemes, incentive schemes, et cetera, so that the tech companies aren't going to be allowed to develop this stuff to take our jobs, right?
Oh,
Much in the
geez.
same way they're going to regulate crypto so that crypto doesn't turn into this unfettered mess. Or even right now here in Australia, big conversation. At the end of the year, what's going to happen is government regulation. Under 16s are going to be banned from owning any social media accounts here in Australia. So by the end of the year, they're going to hit that go button, YouTube included. So they're going to have face recognition and all that type of stuff. A large swath of a country getting conditioned to understand that the way this game is played is the government's going to take care of them or watch over them or make sure bad actors don't turn into bad actors. How's that conversation going?
If we project forward in time, countries that do that, I worry, will lose their competitiveness, because if AI becomes overregulated, we're going to be in a situation where those countries with those constraints, heavy constraints on AI, preventing AI from being used by companies, by students, if that happens, those students, those companies, those countries will be left behind. They just will simply be less competitive. We're now at this inflection point where those who learn to harness the power of AI develop the skills to, in a short time, to thrive in the post-employment economy. And really, that skill that they need to develop is the skill of being their own CEO. You can no longer, as a young person or somebody mid-career, heck, even somebody who's close to retirement, you can no longer depend on a company, let alone a country, to ensure your livelihood, to tell you what work needs to be done. And that's the scariest thing. As a society, globally, without exception, every single country has been conditioning their children, their young adults, and their working population to be lemmings, to be
Compliant,
NPCs,
right.
to be bots, because those who had the capital to put others to work, they wanted what they wanted taken care of automatically.
Right.
And so how do you do that? Wherever they could automate, they automated. Wherever they could not automate with algorithms or robotics, given the technology constraints of their era, they had the schools indoctrinate and just really program those students to behave as though they are robots.
Right.
And these people now, as a society, having been programmed to be robots, we find it exceptionally frightening to think, oh, geez, now I have to decide what is it that I will do for work? What is my next task? What is my next goal? What am I striving for?
Yeah. To go from no brief to open brief, to go from fully briefed to open
Yes.
brief. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's wild. Thinking about, because I've had conversations like this where it'd be a group of us and we're talking about how the availability and sophistication level of tools is insane now. Someone who doesn't know how to code can just say, I want this app, and gets you 50% of the way there. You don't know how to read any of it. You don't know how to debug any of it. You definitely don't know how to make it secure, but it gets you 50% of the way there. It's wild. Or someone who doesn't know how to draw or has no type of storytelling skills can go into one LLM and say, write me a story, give me a storyboard, and then go into another generative AI tool and then go, based off of the story that this other LLM told me, go fill in the storyboard. And now either animate it or draw it in or make it real, like a lifelike character. It was so crazy to me how everyone thought that the structured data type work was going to be the first to get eaten up by LLMs. And then lo and behold, it feels like a decade ago now, like Midjourney comes out, right? Sora comes out, and all those different tools that sit in that realm are just sitting out there for anyone to be able to harness. What's really interesting is in that conversation, then inevitably, the question that comes up goes, yeah, but what do you build though? I don't know what to build. Like, I saw this one app over here. Maybe I can try doing that. Oh, I read this one out of the LinkedIn. So when it came to open brief, even with the availability of tools, it's like, what do I paint now? What do I create now? It's so interesting how when there is the availability of tools and the brief is open, now the next challenge becomes, I don't know where to start. What do I do now? This is great. Do I build this app?
I hate to get esoteric and to just go too meta in my thinking, but I do think this bears saying, for those who don't know what to do, the most important thing to recognize is that every single one of us is born with this ability and this desire to create. I believe that creativity and creation, the characteristic of creativity and the act of creation, is integral, is the most integral, the most human thing. It's the most integral to the human experience. To be human is to be creative. To be human is to create. And so it's there inside of you. And I think that a lot of folks are, for those, I think one of the things I heard you mention was, oh, I heard that there was this thing, maybe I do that thing. Or these guys are doing X, Y, and Z, maybe I should do X, Y, or Z. Or that this particular business worked in that country and maybe we should just copy it and do it in this country. Or heck, these guys are doing that and it seems to be going really well. I'm going to hop on that bandwagon and do the exact same.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that it's that people aren't embracing the innate creativity that is within them, that's driving them to look for those easy answers where it's, oh, somebody's doing that, and so I'm going to do the same thing. They're looking for someone to give them the brief. And so embracing the fact that it is an open brief, embracing the fact that it really is up to you and nobody else to go out there and create and to be your own CEO. I'd say that there are the actual technical skills related to being your own boss, right? So that's one thing that I think that we haven't trained our society does not train for, right? We don't train our people for that. But then there's also this deficit of courage. There's this deficit of willing to put yourself out there. If you're going to create something new of value, if you're going to be somebody who's additive to all of human society in your own small way or in your massive way, whatever it is, then boldness, courage, these are absolutely necessary. And the beautiful thing is the cost of this thing that we're afraid of when we put ourselves out there and try something new, this thing that we're afraid of, the embarrassment of being wrong, of failing. I've failed plenty of times. I failed in front of friends who mean a lot to me. I failed in public, and yeah, it's hard. But the great thing is if you just stand up again and think back to what can I learn from that experience without being overly traumatized by it, because you can get past the trauma of it, then that failed experience becomes part of your superpower. And your next venture, your next project, your next initiative, your next creation is that much stronger for it.
Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, what about the ones where the cost for them is a real, in their mind, and also probably in reality, a real financial cost though, to go, right? Sure, I hear supposedly, maybe some people are of the opinion that this AI tidal wave is going to show up, yeah, sometime, right? Like we don't see any tidal waves. The tide seems fine. Nothing's underwater. So why should I be alarmist?
Tell
Put
that to
myself
the
out
million
there.
people who have lost their jobs.
Sure. That's why I brought.
I hear you. Yeah.
That's why I brought up the whole news story thing, because it's not that, at least here, where what we're seeing in mass media, it's not here yet. And humans are very good at not dealing with stuff that ain't here yet. Look at climate change. We're doing fuck all about that thing. Like it's
Look
not
out.
exactly. The sky's not on fire. What are you talking about? Calm down, everyone. I don't see just like gazillion fish. It doesn't look biblical. So I'm not peak concern. So if it ain't here yet, and I'm watching YouTube, and none of these damn experts can say when the time is. Some say next year. Dario says it's this year. And then you've got some people that say you've got people like Chief Scientist Meta, Jan McCune, who says we don't even have the tech to be able to make that jump to AGI. They can't even get their facts right. Why should I be alarmist and put myself out there right now and spend money starting a bit? Isn't starting business expensive? I got to go through all that headache. I got to put on all this effort. It could fail. Oh my God, am I going to be out of a home? Like those regular folks that are just going, holy shit, dude, this is crazy.
Let me unpack that a little bit. Part of what you're saying is that some folks are wondering, hey, AGI is not even here yet. It might never come. The harsh reality is AI doesn't need to get smarter to take your job. It's already very capable of taking your job. Somebody just hasn't figured out how to put it to work to take your job. So it's already capable of doing a better job than most human beings. So that's one thing. And there's zero question of whether AI can take your job if you're not actually passionate about your job. If you're just calling in each day, you're not really there. You don't want to show up. Then yeah, AI is going to absolutely take your job. Heck, your job is probably already at risk.
Totally. Some
right?
other person's going to take your job.
Maybe they'd rather have no one there doing your job,
Yeah.
no AI, no human doing your job than somebody who doesn't want to be doing it. So that's one thing. AI doesn't need to become AGI to take your job. The other thing is that people don't need to fear AI taking their job if they can start being their own CEO, being their own boss. And you mentioned that it's expensive, right? Businesses are expensive to operate. And yeah, there's money involved, but I would argue that it's not a lot of money. even for someone who's going paycheck to paycheck, I would argue that there are paths to starting your own business without a substantial amount of capital. And I would say that's more true today than it was 3 months ago.
Wow.
It's more true today. It was more true 3 months ago than it was 6 months before that. And it was more true 6 months before that than it was for the 15 years prior. And then for the 15 years prior, it was more true than it was for 30 years prior to that. And I'll think back to when I was a kid sitting down with a 286 with a floppy disk. And I had these games that I loved playing. I thought to myself, hey, what's involved in creating a game company? And I actually had a friend who, as a 9-year-old, he created a computer game. But to create a computer game and run a business with that, back then, what was needed was you needed to, make the game, sure. Then you needed to store it on physical media. So find a way to, at scale, put it on these floppy disks. And you could sit in your basement and just keep cranking them out and slapping stickers on them. You could hand draw on them, whatever. But then you needed packaging. So you needed a box. You needed to print a manual, pop that in there as well. Then you needed to find distribution. Then you needed to promote this game that you made. So all of that needed to happen, right? And each step of that was expensive, very expensive. Then Apple came along and launched the App Store. And all of a sudden, launching a game went from being all of this to just this one tiny slice of it. Make the thing. Make it. That's it. Make the game, upload it to the App Store. And then back then, everything else just worked out, right? You could promote outside, but there wasn't a tremendous amount of competition. And then even when competition started, if somebody latches onto your game, any one of your users could be that catalyst that drives growth. So the cost of starting a business with the Apple App Store suddenly dropped dramatically, where you didn't need a 50-person company anymore. You could be one person. One. The cost of starting a business dropped more than 50x, probably 100x. That's multiple orders of magnitude in cost reduction. And that same thing has happened again and again. But this time around with AI, the cost of starting a business is now a tiny sliver of a fraction compared to what it was previously. If you wanted to get feedback from people who have been there, done that, if you were Steve Jobs, you'd call up Larry Ellison on the phone and ask him for advice, or call up the CEO of HP and ask him for advice. But for most people, that just wasn't possible. And if there were 1,000 Steve Jobs calling the CEO of HP, those 1,000 Steve Jobs weren't going to get anywhere. But the fact that there was only one calling that guy, asking him for advice, that led to exceptional opportunities for him. So when you think about doing that at scale, it's too expensive. The barrier to getting access to that kind of input, the cost of prototyping was very, very high. And that suddenly dropped for software. Now with vibe coding, at minimum, vibe coding today means that any one of us with zero knowledge of software, of programming, zero, can get a proof of concept done. You just speak it and it comes into existence. So
it's crazy when you put it that way.
Right? So your prototype, because that's the single most important thing to get done. Get that prototype done so that you yourself can touch, feel, see it, breathe the same air as the thing, right? Exist in your plane of existence. And if that happens, then you can get a better sense of it and you can show it to other people and start getting some early feedback. Maybe you don't launch it publicly because then you get hacked and like T-app, but that gets you in a position where now you can start getting other folks involved as necessary and having professional developers look at it, work on it. And that was actually the story of the startup that I'm doing now with Banca, our platform for autonomous company creation and operation. Banca.ai was vibe coded by myself and my co-founder. And we're two business guys. And I did some programming as a teenager, but it's been decades since I've done anything like that. And I was able to go in and vibe code a functioning prototype. And between my co-founder and I, we thought, let's get the prototype up. The proof of concept, it'll run on your computer. You're not going to put it up on the web, nothing. So you don't have to worry about security and all that. And one thing led to another. After the prototype was done, I thought, I just do this, that, and X, Y, and Z. We can get this up on the cloud and Poof, I got it up on the cloud. I could start going multi-user. I could start securing it. We started doing all these things. And then we found professional developers to come in and come work with us. And now our CTO and technical co-founder is an ex-Google, worked on Google Brain, AI researcher who had founded a fantastic technology company around using AI for getting precise responses using proprietary technology that he built.
That's crazy. That's wild.
Yeah, my point is that the cost of starting a business has come way down for everybody. Even a theoretical physicist, and if you've got a little bit of knowledge in that one domain, now all the other kind of business infrastructure stuff, you can automate all of that. And Anka does a lot of that, but it's possible for folks to do pieces of that on their own using the large language models out there.
Yeah, totally. It's a crazy world that we're in right now. And here's a question for you. Do you think it would be a Thanos Marvel movie Thanos kind of moment where it just goes, I guess, where it's a flash event and tomorrow will never be the same again? Or will it be the slow boil and society wouldn't even see it really coming? There's no monumental event that comes down the pipe. It's just this continuous innovation and all that stuff happening. Most of the population have not heard of Scale AI, the startup that recently got acquired by Zuckerberg and the Meta team, because it's just sitting in the bottom of its infrastructure.
Yeah.
So much of it is not it's not the fangs with that or anything like that, but it's happening. So much of it is happening, right? New models are coming out all the time also, but most of society doesn't see it there. That's why I'm curious to see where you stand on this. And do you think it'll be like, holy crap, it's here? There's this moment in time, I guess a bit like COVID, where everyone was just like, holy crap, it's here. The world's going to have to reorganize in a very short amount of time, try to figure it out, and then end up taking 2 years to figure out something that we all thought it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve? Or do you think it's just going to be, instead of viral, be fungal, just growing in the dark? That's what Seth Godin calls it. Don't be viral, be fungal instead. Just start spreading yourself in the dark there. Where do you think that's at?
The iceberg that we see is not the thing to worry about. It's already happened. It has already happened. And we do need to move fast and very quickly retool all of society, really, to stop telling our young people to become lemmings. We need to stop that right away. And the machine that indoctrinates lemminghood into our young people is incredibly sophisticated.
And they've had decades of experimentation, so it's fine-tuned as hell, right?
Centuries.
Yeah.
So it's something that needs to change very quickly. And I'm heartened by a lot of people talk about brain rot on social media, but the alternative view that this sophisticated indoctrination machine of manufacturing more and more NPC young adults, school, in simpler words, school. Geez, we have to change that right now. And I think that the way to change it is this. I thought long and hard about how can we retool the idea of schools. I think that what we do, especially with AI, is that we take the entire K through 12 curriculum and we compress it down into 8 or 9 years, right? That's your core education. And with AI, it's absolutely possible to do that in a lot less time. So if we do that, then we have people that understand the hard sciences, that understand history, that understand how to read and write, that can speak eloquently, that can have a debate. We have people that have that core foundational education. I believe that to be tremendously important. Absolutely. Education itself matters, but school is not education. So do that in K through 9, right? Or maybe K through 8. And then for the next 4 years, put these people in an unconstrained environment where they can pursue their passions, where they can find their obsessions. They can obsess over something. The only requirement is that you do obsess over something. And maybe you fail miserably doing it and you find a different obsession. Maybe you go from the ukulele as an obsession to the history of vintage speakers to maybe it's communicating with dolphins. So you find that obsession and you really dive deep into it and you build, you learn, you adapt. And that's something that people can take control of over a 4-year period. And only after they decide, hey, this is actually an area that I really want to go into the theory of as well, then you can go to college. The post-secondary education then starts. So learn by doing, not by sitting inside of a classroom, is really what I think is so important for young people who are, their bodies are changing, their biology, like they're going through puberty at that age, right? So at that age, when they're going through all that flux and change, there's nothing healthier for them than to, after having had that foundational education academically, as well as physically, artistically, all of that, foundational education, compress it into 9 years and just let them go and be and experience. And then I think that we'll be in a much better place as a society. So I view changes like that to be things that I'd love to see, yes, our governments put into place, but absent government action, I think that there's room for us to empower our young people to do something along those lines at the family level. I'm hopeful that we'll see more and more things like that unfolding across society. And if we do that, then I think that young people will be in a position to thrive in the world of AI.
Yeah. Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being it'll absolutely come into existence. 0, 1 being no fucking way in hell. What do you think the likelihood of that setup that you just talked about would come into existence in the next, to meet the timeline of what you're talking about, between 5 to 10 years?
I'm pretty confident that something like that will unfold. Maybe not in that exact way, but we're going to see change happening. We're already seeing, here's the thing, the big companies that are hiring, I think that in the past 12 months, we've seen them fairly universally acknowledge that the college degree is not the gold standard for
Right.
So society is retooling. A private enterprise has already reset that priority.
Yeah.
I believe that there's room for higher education. I believe there's a very important role to play. The thing is, they're just teaching the wrong stuff in a lot of cases. And there are a lot of really bad schools out there.
Yeah. And that's why, for me, this hearing you talk about that system, that education system, the one that you're describing, I sit more so on the lower third, right? Like 0, 1, like 1, 2, 3, in terms of likelihood of it occurring in a time that is sufficient to meet whatever is happening right now. So I think it takes too much argument that it's
already happened in a lot of ways. I think that a lot of young folks in high school already have accelerated their education through short form video.
See, that's where I'm a bit more bullish, where there are individuals who are taking matters into their own hands and saying, screw waiting for all this. The system's too slow and lumbering to be able to catch up. I'm going to, you know what? I'll just watch some YouTube. It could start from one TikTok video where they saw this one person who looks like them, sounds like them, the same kind of age band, start an app and then make some cool cash out of it. And they're like, you know what? I'll give that a shot. And then they go down the YouTube rabbit hole and all those other different places, and they're taking a stab at it. That seems to me more likely than the large institutional change. And that's what excites me the most, where you've got people who are hungry, curious. They previously would probably started a dropship store, or they would have started their own YouTube channel. Heck, OnlyFans, same kind of deal. It's just a way to get to, first, some type of financial stability, security, and then eventually abundance, and then freedom. Everyone's just been, the capitalistic society just dictates that's what we most of the time aspire to, because it gives us access to things, peace of mind being one of them. So I think school's never going to tell you to start an OnlyFans account if you have good looking right? Forget that, but it is a very real way of making income for very low type of effort.
By the way, OnlyFans creators are cooked. That path, whether you agree with it or not, that's something that's going away because of AI. But I'll point to this. I saw something similar. I just Googled it. This is the first result that came up.
Yeah, nice.
Young people don't want to go to college anymore. A lot of them just don't see value in it. I think that we're already seeing young
That's
people
crazy.
having gone through an era where information can be compressed into so many kind of super hyper efficient modules that can get a surface level
Yeah.
of understanding knowledge, a tremendously broad surface level knowledge plugged into their brains through these phones that are glued to their faces.
Yeah, totally.
So they're smart. They're broadly intelligent. Are they deeply intelligent? I'd say that it's probably along the same lines. The ratio of people who are deeply intelligent is probably the same, right?
Sure.
It comes down to who's actually interested, engaged, whatever. And
Sure.
so I think that's the same. And there are some areas, like I'd say that the United States has become prolific at producing elite athletes, for example, right? And it's an area of obsession. The US is one of those countries that's done an exceptionally good job of that. But globally, I think we've become very good at producing elite athletes, giving them the opportunity to thrive and pursue their passion. So I think that the rate of people who are like the availability of going deep into your passions, it's gotten better. So very likely that also exists today more so than it did in the past 50 years.
Yeah.
And then it's really coming down to these people who are broadly intelligent, right? They've got broad smarts, and a good proportion of them have begun to obsess. They're smart enough to make that assessment. Hey, is college right for me? What does college actually do for me? And a lot of them are making the call that, hey, it's not right for me. And for some people it is. I think that there are very specific reasons to go. I think that if colleges evolve, there will be even more reasons to go, because I am all for an institution where you go there and you are just immersed in a culture of learning and studying, right? Absolutely, that is a good thing. Absolutely. It's just a lot of them have lost their way, focused too much on the wrong thing. And heck, here's the thing. What is the single most important metric for higher education? I would argue that aside from set brand prestige aside, right? If you set that aside, the single most important metric for especially that second tier of college. So if you exclude the Ivies and then Ivy adjacent, then beyond them, the single most important metric is the rate of employment. And the biggest employers are saying, you don't need it.
Yeah.
And frankly, was it Berkeley, a professor at Berkeley, comp sci, a few weeks ago, he went out on social media and said, none of my 4.0 GPA students even are getting interviews. They can't get jobs. I talked to a friend about I think it was one of the UCs. So one of the University of California schools, the MBA students there couldn't get jobs. He talked about Yale MBA. Now, Yale MBA is right up there with like your Harvard MBA and your MIT MBA.
Absolutely.
And so, it's a good program. You'd think that 100% would get jobs, right? Because
one would think
half of them are already like
just the brand alone. Yeah.
And only half are getting jobs, 50%.
That's fascinating.
Down from what very likely was 100%, and now it's 50%. And guess which 50% are getting jobs, because it's the son of the king of So
totally. Yeah. The people who know people who know people.
Exactly. So those people, like they're like no amount of traumatic events. Socioeconomic trauma is going to affect them. That they'll be fine. And so that's the 50%. So colleges are proving to be exceptionally bad, terrible, incompetent when it comes to ensuring that their graduates get jobs.
Yeah. And not to over belabor this point, but I can understand why, primarily because of the fact that for the large part, they are very slow lumbering machines with multiple layers of bureaucracy and a curriculum that they have to protect as well. I remember several years ago, I got invited to the University of Queensland to talk to some lecturers around their business and marketing program and, how to stay how to stay industry relevant. So they brought in industry players like myself to go, what can we do to stay industry relevant? And the conversation ended up with, and me being me and being candid as all heck, I went, I don't know if the system that you guys are locked into, I don't know if it's possible. Because if a student goes in there for a 3-year degree, or say they're doing a double major, a 4, whatever, but minimally a 3-year degree, then you can't just shift the goalposts on them midstream and change up the curriculum all of a sudden out of nowhere. You need to set at least the semester ahead, or they need to be able to do exams, like practice exams from prior. So you're this slow, very uniterative machine in here. If you shake stuff up, good for you, but I don't know how to solve that problem. That's you guys' thing. But what we need are people who are on the front all the time, where things shift in a 3 to 6 month window. And I knew that we were in trouble when there was a master. I don't know why that girl, good for her though. She was doing a master's in marketing. And she came up to ask me what I thought about SMIs. And I went, what's an SMI? I've never heard of an SMI in my life. And she goes, oh, social media influencers. And I go, who the heck calls them SMIs? If you came to my place of work to interview and you said SMI, I'd be like, I'm sorry, girl, but you are so out of touch. You're so out of touch. I totally get it, right? That's why my score it skews lower, because they're just so slow to iterate. I think the incentives are there right now for them to iterate. What writing is definitely on the wall. If we bring it back closer to home, though, I'm in college right now, or I'm thinking about going to college, or I'm fresh out of college and I'm in a job. I don't know if it's going to be around for that much longer. Who knows? What should I be doing now? What can I be doing now to arm myself for this next 3 to 5 years that you're talking about, Mr. Lee?
Embrace the change first and foremost, and understand that there is not a single school in the world or a single company in the world that can ensure that you will remain employed or that you will become employed. Likewise, I'll go even further. There's not a single school or company that can give you a reasonable probability of becoming or remaining employed. Because here's the thing, the executives at the largest companies in the world, and frankly, every company down, they are thinking, how can I save money by having a robot do it instead of a person? That's the same thing. Like, that is a truth that has been happening ever since automation started coming into play. You think about the old school kind of big robotics, like a Fanuc robotics, like they replaced a large swath of jobs, right? But now we're at this point where it's not your blue collar job that is only at risk of being displaced. And there were exceptionally resilient blue collar jobs, of course, electricians, that I believe we'll suddenly see. You talked about like the sudden change, and that's going to be, I think, plumbers and electricians. But outside of that, we're already seeing this time around, it's cognitive jobs. Automation is coming after that one thing that our schools have taught us to be sacrosanct. Like it is, they have been saying that to be human is to be smart, right? And I would say that to be human is to be creative, to create. Here's the nuance. That doesn't mean that I want everybody to go out there and become an artist painting on canvas, right? For those who do, absolutely power to them. Wonderful. We're going to continue needing that. We're going to continue needing people who are artists on the football pitch, or for Americans, the soccer pitch, the soccer field. We're going to need the artists on the basketball court, the LeBron Jameses. We're going to need the F1 drivers. We're going to need those incredible athletes to be artists in motion. But we're also going to need people that create ideas that move people, that move the economy, ideas that move hearts and minds as well. I'm talking about people that write poetry. Yes, we'll need that. I'm talking about people that start companies. I'm talking about people. So I believe that the one thing, if you are in college now, whether you continue with college or not, if you are working in a company and you're worried about whether they're going to keep you or not, and my heart goes out to you as a person who, if you're going to be, that's just around the corner and your job's going to be impacted. They politely call them RIFs, or reductions in force. But if you know that they're going to call you into a meeting and give you the Donald Trump apprentice, you're fired. There's only one thing for you to do. Create your own source of income. Create your own business. You have to. Even if you have a job right now, even if you're in school and you plan on continuing, everybody, there is no excuse, because the cost of starting that new business, that new project, that idea, it's so tiny. So treat it as your who is that? Kevin O'Leary. He had this thing. He's a Shark Tank guy who said he complained. I think it was him. So if I'm misattributing this quote, Kevin, I'm sorry, but I think it was you saying on social media that he doesn't get young people who go for avocado toast and Starbucks. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Because that money, you could put it into a fund and save up money. I would say the single best thing for young folks to do, because the cost of going to Starbucks is roughly the cost of starting a company right now. Like a $20 Claude account or $200 Claude account per month. That gets you coding. If you want an easier UI for it, a $20 Cursor account gets you that. Like, it gets you coding. You can go directly to one of these large language models and talk with them about your business idea. You can go to Vanka, plug in your idea and generate all of your, like, whatever it is. Start something now. Put your mind to it. Start a business. Now is the time to do it, because I say post-employment economy is where we are at right now, right? But there's a far harsher way of thinking about it. I've come to think of, and employment is almost, it's like a modern day form of slavery. We're locked into it. It's never enough. And we're always at risk. Today, people who are traditionally employed, they are fearing for their jobs. It is a terrible experience right now. And so I would say, if you're employed and you're earning a salary, that can disappear at any time. The thing to do is, if you start your own business, you'll be able to, as it generates revenue, start drawing income right now. And that's important, because you got to put food on the table. So ideally, you already have a job. You're able to start this in parallel. I'll go a little old school here. Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, something along those lines to get something going. I see Rick Rubin's book there on your shelf, I think. I would recommend reading that as well. Create something. And if you do that, and ideally, if you're super passionate about it, you're going to start drawing an income out of it. But more importantly, for the long run, you're building equity. Employment income is not the answer. It's a temporary thing. No employer, it just does not exist anymore, the idea of a job for life. I think when I say that, people are like, well, duh. But the thing is, not only is it not a job for life, it's probably not a job for the next 12 months. Certainly not for the next 36 months. So you'd better, like, now is the time, equity. You have to own equity. You have to build equity. And as you're doing that, absolutely find a way to make sure that you get paid.
Totally. Yeah. As we start to land the plane, if I can leave people with this one thought, it would be if the way to think about starting a company sounds too scary right now or too high stakes for now, change the messaging in your head. Just tinker.
Yeah.
Get your hands on the tools. If that sounds too scary, you don't have to, just because you're trying it doesn't mean that you're going to actually do it. If that's not the way that your brain is organized and that doesn't get you excited, maybe find excitement in tinkering. Go play with go onto YouTube. There's a ton of chatter right now around all these low code tools. Maybe play there if code seems too intimidating. That was my journey. It was even though I had a tech startup 10 years ago, it was a really great reintroduction or introduction into, oh yes, this is how code works. And just getting back into that programmer's mind of, for this to happen, this must happen first. But for this to happen, fun. I found a little bit of, that's my little, I guess, I don't know, instead of playing Candy Crush, that's my version of Candy Crush. 1 hour in the evening, I'm just playing around with low code tools. And then eventually, went over to playing with the coding assistants, right? So I've got a Cursor account. I also got a Cloud Code account, and just tinkering there. And that's a good enough way to begin, because what's inevitably is going to happen is you will have some type of project that you're either trying to copy or some type of outcome that you're either trying to achieve, and you will not achieve it first go. So inevitably, you have to go watch those YouTube videos. Then you pick up more stuff. Then you try new shit. And you're just, now you've got the ball rolling. And that's all we need. We just need to get the ball rolling. That's a great place to begin. And soon before you know it, you'll start dropping YouTubers' names and LinkedIn accounts that are in the know, and you're commenting back to receive their little PDFs and all that. And before you know, you're building your own stuff. Maybe you're dropping your own PDF. And that's how that snowball starts to accumulate, get bigger, get momentum, and starts really rolling. And that's the maker part. That's the part that's exciting. And then all the other stuff can just like tack into that. Because I've seen and I've been part of prototypes that were just shared among friends. All of a sudden, they're like, you need to turn this into production. This needs to stop being a closed beta. I want to give you money. In a few ways, that's how the agency started. We were just like tapping people on the shoulder. Hey, can we run your stuff? And then they're going, I want to pay you, man. Can you go incorporate this company, please? Because I want to pay you money. I don't want this to be a flaky project. And then like 8 years later, here we are managing like millions in ad spend and internationalizing D2C, but all that type of stuff. So the start even wasn't this fantastical, monumental thing. It was just this snowball effect. So start tinkering.
Like the idea of you're just out there genuinely enjoying creating value. And if you do that, then the commercial part of it, if that follows, you started as a project, you iterate, maybe you do a few different projects. And as you're doing that, by the way, it's such a rewarding experience because you're taking something, you're exploring inside and here and expressing it. And when you do that, when you express yourself in that way, it is such a rewarding experience. I got to say, having founded multiple companies, that act of creation, it carries so much meaning. And so does it mean that you're sacrificing your Friday nights or beers with buds or whatever, or watching the big game? Depends on how you look at it. Because I would actually say that you're gaining this incredible experience of self-expression that, frankly, every single one of us is born primed to do.
Yeah, totally. It's so funny. I think I'm a bit more cutthroat than David. I'm the guy that in my head goes, listen, if you want to go have those beers with those buds, and that's the most important thing to you right now, good for you. This video ain't for you. Or like the crypto bros like to say, not going to make it. If that's all you care about, I'm sorry, bro, but man, something's coming.
So I'll talk about the Vanka experience, very early stage. I packed on like every ounce of muscle I had just melted. I packed on weight. I sat down at my computer and I just worked for 18, 19, 20 hours a day, every single day for multiple months. And I just wrecked my body. And I didn't see anybody. I lived in a cave. I slept in the same room where I worked, and I just woke up and worked, and that was it. That was everything for me. And then my creation saw light of day, and then it was really hard getting back into this mode of engaging socially.
Sure, I get that.
It was really hard.
I get that.
And part of it is that if you're in that kind of physical state as well, but I wouldn't have it any other way. If I hadn't done that, then Vanka would not exist. So my co-founder and I, we worked together. Like I go to his place and we'd wake up, work all day and come back to my place after a couple of weeks there and do the same thing over. It was an incredibly rewarding experience. And now I'm embracing the whole 996 and more. If you guys don't know, 996 is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. I'm embracing that because I think that there is no greatness that doesn't come from, there's no greatness that does not come from a tremendous amount of just sheer effort as well. The great thing is when you're creating, it really doesn't feel like work. It's just a passion. And when it becomes a passion, it's like the morning you're excited to go to work. And
Sure.
somebody said to me today, they pointed to a social media post. They said, David, I want to adjust that a little bit. In the morning, you're excited to go to work. In the evening or at night, you're excited to go home. So yeah, I'm excited to go home. I'm excited to get to work, and I'm incredibly grateful for both. And I think that the two feed into each other. And in that ownership experience, everything I create, I also take great pride, gratitude, and have great gratitude for the reality that everything I do at Vanka, it's also equity. This is something that I own a substantial part of. And I believe that in the long run, that will be the by far 100x, 1000x bigger than anything that I get out of it in terms of salary. And I'd love to see that for more and more people, which is really fundamentally why we founded Vanka. In this post-employment economy, it could very quickly become a hellscape. But if Vanka does its job, then we empower more people to start their businesses and operate their businesses.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Man, it's wild times to come. Can't wait to have more conversations with you because I think.
Oh, we're going to sit down together every week. This is my Friday night ritual now.
Yeah, nice. That's totally awesome. Where do you think, just to give people a preview before we close out, what can they expect from future conversations, you think?
We'll continue talking about the future of work and what that looks like. I think that we'll be able to dive deep into the personal stories of people that are going through it. I'd love to bring in somebody who's in college right now, somebody who was recently impacted by a layoff. And heck, between the two of us, I think that we can add a tremendous amount of value to the journey that those folks are on. If somebody is starting something new, you are one of the smartest guys I know. Like you, Right Hook Digital, like you guys know how to drive success on social media and in performance marketing. Heck, just talking about the ICPs together with you about Vanka, for example. Like I came at you out of left field. Like you had no idea that was what we were going to be talking about. And then all of a sudden, like, boom, you were incredibly insightful. I think that we can add a lot of value to folks that are going on that journey. So I'd love to make this more personal to folks that are going through it right now, wondering what, not just broadly the future of work is going to be, but for me, what is the future of my work going to be?
Yeah, totally. All of us.
And guidance for them.
Like all of us are going to get touched, right? And we're all just navigating through this with the same amount of know-how as the next guy. Like we don't know. We know what the direction is, but we don't really truly know. So this is exciting for me because then we get to explore that, stay on the pulse, figure out what's going on and together, and use this as an opportunity to make sure that we navigate through this with as many perspectives as possible. So we think that, at least for me personally, we can go in with eyes wide open and go, okay, see it coming now. And it's going to come in this type of shape, way, shape, and form. This is the type of surfboard I think that we're going to need to put together to be able to ride that wave. Because I think in and amongst all this, and this is where I'm excited about, I'm trying really hard not to extend the ending here. What I'm really excited about is that there is so much alpha right now. There's so much alpha right now building just the simplest GPT, AI wrapper type tools to deploy and really just make some cash and then probably to move on to the next one, because there are all these small little pockets. You got the big dogs fighting the big fights. You can really just refactor those into all these fun, small little areas and make a $30,000 a month little app, a $15,000 a month app, whether it's a web app or a mobile app, whether it's SaaS in one type of shape, way, shape, and form. In fact, the SaaS people I'll be really interested to bring in, because there's so much doom saying about whether the future of SaaS is even going to be a thing anymore, or whether it's just going to be a bunch of agentic type tools where you don't need one monolithic software as a service. But yeah, I'm super excited about this, man.
Same here. Looking forward to our next talk. And Dee, it was a pleasure sitting down together with you today.
Likewise, my man. As always, been far too long. So glad that it's going to be every week now.